Hey all, welcome to today's channel chat. Today's chat is part of a series we're doing on hot button issues in MMOs. And with us today is none other than Demone Kim. Demone, thanks so much for joining us today. How are things?
Things are good, man. Just staying on the grind, waiting for the best game to finally bless our presence.
Yeah, what's that going to be?
No idea, yes.
Yeah, I'm excited to finally have you on. I mean, we've been talking, doing some shit together for a while now, but first time you're on this channel, so thanks, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get it.
So yeah, hot button issues. That's what this is all about. But before we dig into that, just so that the viewers of this channel maybe have a little context of where your opinions and thoughts are coming from, can you give us a little bit about your past? Like how long you've been playing MMOs, which ones you played?
All right, so let's see. I started playing MMOs back in 2004 with Lineage 2. I actually made the mistake of taking out a loan and buying the computer from Radio Shack. Um, and so I tried to play Lineage 2, and I remember grinding just for hours. It was the first game I ever played, and so it's what got me really accustomed to MMOs in the space. And then after Lineage 2 for a few years, I played WoW, probably just like everyone back in Vanilla WoW when WoW was great. And then onto there, I probably played every single other MMO under the sun, always in search of what was going to be the replacement MMO for the big three right now.
Favorite one? Like between WoW and today. I mean, did any do it for you?
Oh, ah, that's rough. I'd probably have to say WoW would have to take that cake there,
Yeah.
just because I've tried to get into the other two so many times, but to no avail. I did play Elder Scrolls when it came out on console and tried to go back to it many times, but something just it did. It never really felt like a real Elder Scrolls game to me. And Final Fantasy 15 was cool, but to me, it felt like if I was going to play WoW, I might as well play WoW. So I kind of stuck with WoW throughout all of it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I tried to get into Final Fantasy too, but I don't know, the combat just didn't get me the way that WoW's did. I just always felt like I was standing still pushing buttons. I don't know. It was probably just me, but um, were there any others that like you tried between like when you quit WoW and today that like just didn't make it? You wish they had.
I gotta say, first thing that comes to my mind's got to be New World. I feel
Yeah,
like New World, especially with the backing for Amazon. I understand that MMOs take time, and New World is in a much better position than it used to be. But I felt like the 2 week preview that we had was probably some of the best weeks of MMO gaming like ever since I initially got into MMOs.
yeah. I love New World. It was with a heavy heart that I put it down, but there was just after a while there's just nothing. I don't know. I'm thinking about going back in season 10. Are you ever gonna try it out again?
Well, I came back to New World like a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and I was just checking it out. And they made a lot of improvements, and a lot of people were talking about. I guess there's some huge changes coming for season 10, so maybe I will take a swing back through.
I'm most excited for the procedural dungeons they keep talking about. Like, I don't know. I have this vision in my mind. Like, if they could get like the procedural dungeon of like Diablo 3 and into an MMO like that, maybe it could be cool. But I don't know.
That'd be pretty crazy.
Yeah. Are there any you're looking forward to?
Let's see. I'm hoping that Light No Fire is going to be crazy, or maybe Ashes of Creation will take off. But it's really hard to say, especially with the way that MMOs have really just been kind of missing the bar lately.
I hear that. I'm personally hoping for Ashes. Also rooting for Star Citizen. Um, we'll see. Let's get into one of these issues. First one up: group play versus solo play. What kind of a player are you?
I prefer solo, just because I don't have to run or wait for other people.
Yeah,
But I also understand that the group dynamic, especially in PvP, is mandatory.
yeah. That's I'm glad to have a solo prefer on here. I don't know. Something tells me I'm going to get mostly group players, but I could be totally off on that. So like, I assume you read Reddit and stuff like that sometimes, or forums like the New World forums. I mean, you always see like this back and forth tug of war on like people I mean, one extreme is like we need more group content. Not everything can be optimized for solo play, and then of course, then you got the other extreme, which is like everything should be accessible by a solo player. Like whenever you see these debates, like where's your mind go? Like how do you think about it?
I think there has to be a happy medium, if there is such a thing. I think you should be incentivized to play alone because sometimes, like, friends aren't there. Sometimes you just want to break from the wife or partner or spouse or whatever. You just kind of want to grind it out. So I feel like accessibility, especially for soloists, is extremely important. But I feel like there should be content that's difficult enough that if you are a crazy soloist, you can tackle, so you still feel like you're contributing to the cause. But there should also be content that you need players to play with to tackle. Otherwise, what's the point of it even being an MMO? It might as well just be, I don't know, Path of Exile, solo self-found or something. But like,
Yeah,
creating those instances where you have a reason to actually play with other people and conquer the hardest challenges in the game, I think is what makes MMOs MMOs.
could not agree more. If you think back to the games you've played, is there any that you think gets this the rightest?
Oh, that's tough. I can't really say because I'd still be playing them if they did. Um, I think there were some games that got it close. Like I think like the solo grind with New World up until the point where you were opening chests for gear score back in the day, I think was pretty solid, right? Like I think they were onto something, but it needed some fine tuning and some emphasis on depth. I think that a lot of games nowadays have really just been so focused on creating milestones for players that they have really just missed the opportunity to create that space where you feel like just playing the game itself is actually enjoyable and fun. So it doesn't feel like a chore when you do have to go do fetch quests or gather quests or skin things or whatever the case may be. And I feel like, instead of them really just, oh, we just need to make the best graphics or the best looking this or the best story or the best that, I think they need to really focus on just making the foundation of the game solid and enjoyable.
I couldn't agree more. Good systems, in other words. One that comes to mind for me is PAX Day. like
Don't even get me started. Don't even get me started.
it's like PAX Day versus Ashes. I feel like Ashes is spending so much time on the systems, but like the moment to moment isn't there yet. Like I remember, like when I first started PAX, like the moment to moment felt good. Like I'm out in the world, I'm looking around, like here's a plant. Oh, I'll grab that. Oh, there's a tree. I'll cut that down. Like there's so much to do in the moment, but then like eventually it's like, well, where's the systems? And then like I go to Ashes, it's total opposite. Like there's all kinds of systems. Like the number of systems are actually overwhelming. Like but the moment is like, well, what is there to do? I guess I'll just go grind mobs on this spot over here until my fingers fall off. But yeah,
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like it really blows my mind because it's just like I don't really think that sometimes I question like did these game developers understand? Like if your game is fun to play, it buys you time, right? So like we all understand that MMOs take a long time. But if your base combat systems or your, gathering systems or the basic things that your player is going to be spending a majority of time doing are dog shit, then it doesn't really matter what you promise to release because it's only going to be a very, very small niche of players that is going to find joy in what it is that you have to offer. And that's only going to be based on the potential of the game, which is really, really fragile because then if the developers miss a step, then it's game over.
100%. While we're on the topic of, well, probably the next logical hot button issue to move into from group play and solo play is PvE and PvP. I was just on another Reddit thread last night, for Dune Awakening, I think it was, and it was, and yet another thread of like people saying, PVE should be separate from PvP. Like, I can't finish the game because like I'm forced into a PvP environment. Like, I'm sure you've read threads like this. Like, what's your take on them?
Oh, 100%. I've been a PvPer like forever, and so I completely understand. I think the challenge though is understanding that PvP is such a very small percentage of the player base. However, on the PvE side, it's usually the PvE players that are the loudest or pretend PvPers that get clapped and then all of a sudden become PvEers and they have a problem because most of the time, if players are winning, they don't have an issue, right? But I think it's a hard thing to address, because how do you really create that line where you still feel conflict and PvEers feel like they can get involved without losing everything that they have, or getting their pride hurt. Um, and then how do you still also incorporate PvP without pissing your PvPers off? Because most PvPers, myself included, are assholes, and we are all or nothing, right? So, so it's just like I personally wouldn't want to be in the position where I would have to figure out like that conundrum, that riddle. But I think that both facets absolutely need to be in the game, because there's only so much that you can PvE. And once it becomes real and it's about somebody can either take from you or you can take from them, I think it adds a level to the gameplay that just can't be replaced.
That dovetails into the next thing I was going to ask, which is PVE important for PvP and vice versa? But you just asked. I mean, you just answered it. Well, let me ask you this first before I share my opinion. But like, you often hear like, this is a sandbox MMO or this is a theme park MMO. Like, what is a sandbox in your mind? Like, if you hear sandbox MMO, what do you think like the important elements are?
I think for Sandbox, customization for sure, and accessibility are probably the two most important features, right? The ability to really play the way that you want is truly a sandbox MMO. There's not really a lot of hand holding. The direction that you take in a sandbox MMO is your direction for the choosing, or unless you are led to go a specific way. But all of it has to be by choice if it's a sandbox.
So one of the problems. I'm circling back to what we talked about previously, but one of the problems in my mind whenever I think about theme park MMOs is I know like things like Final Fantasy, World of Warcraft, they're still extremely popular. I would call those theme park MMOs. It's just perpetual content drip, and it seems to me like the new MMOs that are coming out and trying to stack up against these 20-year juggernauts are just not able to sustain that same um, level of content drip or whatever you want to call it, right? Like they can't sustain that same amount of content coming out. Like I saw that in New World. Like I agree with you. I love New World, but like once you got to the end game, like Amazon just could not keep pace with like players' thirst for more dungeons, more of this, more battlegrounds, whatever it was. And so I keep coming back to like sandboxes and horizontal progression being kind of the answer to this, where like you don't need such an aggressive content schedule because players are able to generate that content. I mean, this is one of the reasons I'm really interested in things like PAX Day, Ashes of Creation, Star Citizen. They're all seeming to strive for this recipe of like give the players a world to build their sandcastles in and let them create the content from one another. I mean, do you think that's a possibility? Do you think that can counter the alternative, which is the corporation's content drip?
I mean, I don't really think that there is a counter. Like, it's kind of just one of those things. Like, until like technology gets to a place where things are just easy to update, or maybe there's a different preparation. Because I don't really think people understand like how difficult it is to develop games and to release content. So it's easy for us as gamers to sit in the back on the back and just criticize and be like, "Oh, this game's ass, da 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 da." But on the same token, I think there's got to come some level of acceptance that no matter what happens, no matter how good the game is, there's always going to be some level of waiting.
Yeah. Do you think that like I don't know? Maybe I've idealized some things in my mind, but whenever I think of sandbox, like the ultimate sandbox game that jumps out to me, and it's probably not the one that jumps out to everybody, but EVE Online. I spent a couple years playing that quite a while ago, and like I don't know if you ever looked at like EVE Online's player graph, but it's pretty. I mean, it's got the peaks and valleys, but it just seems to me like it's much less substantial than most games, and I've always kind of asked myself why, and like the only thing that jumps out to me is like in that game you have No, I'm not even talking about the last few years. I know that they've made substantial changes to the game, which has negatively impacted the player base the past few years, but I'm talking like before that. And it just seems to me like the concept and idea of territory control and players like organizing into these large groups and kind of warring on each other to hold on to these large areas of space or whatever it is in the game you're playing, like it has kind of sustained and driven that player base even in between new content releases for CCP. And I just keep wondering, can another game pull that off? I don't know.
I think they can, but I think just implementation is hard, because like you've seen it, right? Like Final Fantasy was dog shit when it came out.
Yeah.
Elder Scrolls was dog shit when it came out. I mean, even what we call the best MMO, like World of Warcraft, that was ass when it released, but it was the only one of its kind. And it takes time to really flesh out systems. And I think, like how do you as a developer create a PvP circumstance where it's still valuable for PvPers that want to take everything you own? And still make a space where you can kind of coddle the PvEers that think PvP is cool as long as it doesn't involve them, you know what I mean? Or they at least have the option to kind of get in where they can and still not lose everything. Like I said, it's a really tough system to solve. But I think as they move through and systems improve, and like I said, technology gets better and it's easier to implement systems and features that incentivize players to get involved, whether PvE or PvP, I think ultimately devs have no choice but to find a solution that works for everyone, or they'll get left behind.
When it comes to working for everyone, I mean, do you think that let's look at Dune. I know you spent some time playing Dune recently. Like they tried to incentivize PvP by putting spice out in the deep desert, and they were like, in order to get the most spice, you have to take your group out there. You have to farm the spice, but if you're farming the spice, you're gonna be subject to PvP. Do you think that's a good recipe? Do you think they should have ways for PvEers to sidestep that?
I think it's a start, but they have to. I think it's just the beginning of a system that needs to be refined,
Yeah.
right? Because they have to essentially create a way for players to be able to feel good about the things that they do. Because the problem that they did with PvP was that they didn't incentivize PvP enough. So, like, yeah, Spice, yeah, we're killing people, but capturing points, useless. Holding territory, useless. So, what else you're going to do as a PvPer but kill people when you have nothing left to do?
Fair enough. You see the same thing in Ashes of Creation right now. I mean, they got the caravan. I don't know if you've looked at Ashes much at all, but they got the caravan system, which is really the way that they handle the ejection of currency into the economy. It's not really like World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy. Like in those games, you go out and you kill mobs, and the mobs drop gold, and that gold enters the economy. In Ashes of Creation, like mobs drop this thing called glint. You can't really do anything with glint. Glint is not a currency, but you can convert that into currency by saying, okay, I'm going to run a caravan from this town to this town. And caravans are PvP events. And as soon as somebody gets on a caravan and they start moving, you're now PvP flagged. Anybody can come bombard you. There's really not too much incentive for people to come and attack your caravan. They don't really get a whole lot of doing it, for considering the time they have to invest in doing it. But as you just pointed out, it's the only source of PvP in the game right now, and so caravans get mauled. Sometimes it is just for the content.
Yeah. So, how do you think that devs could solve that problem?
I'm I was just in a debate on this a few days ago, and I think that the problem with Ashes is Ashes isn't done. So it's hard to judge and say, like, this is a flawed mechanic because I don't know what the final state looks like. But if we were in the final state of the game, one issue I have with PvP games in general, and this is even true in Dune right now, is that oftentimes the player on the defensive side is the one bearing all the risk. This is a problem with Star Citizen too. Like if I'm investing my hard-earned currency to buy this thing and transport it across the galaxy and sell it at a higher price over here, I have a bunch of money on the line, and I'm transporting a good that any player could come and they could blast my ship apart, steal it, and they could take it and profit all of it. That player who's attacking me has really no risk in doing so. It's all upside for them. They haven't invested anything. All they're doing is hunting me, stealing. And if I do succeed in defending myself, I blow up their ship. Okay, they respawn it, or they file an insurance claim. They get it back. They've lost nothing other than a little bit of time. It's the same thing in Dune, right? If you're harassing a spice field where a guild out there has a bunch of sand crawlers and carriers and they've got all this equipment on the line, and you come out there, this just happened to us the other night. You come out there at an anti-gravity belt with an ancient way rocket launcher, and you just start harassing everybody. Like, you have zero risk. It's all upside for you. And the same thing is true in Ashes, like with a player attacking caravans. Like, the person who's running that caravan has sunken all their glint into the thing. And the counter I hear is like, well, but the person running the caravan stands to make the most profit, so they should have risk. And I don't know, something doesn't sink into my brain, because I'm like, it still doesn't seem right that the attacking player has no risk, all upside. I mean, am I making sense?
Yeah, you make sense. But like on that same token, though, it's going to recreate the same dilemma in every single system, right? So then you still have the disparity between, what players want, what they think they want, and what they actually need, or what's going to further the progress of the system itself.
Yeah. I hear you. I mean, I'm like you. I'm glad I'm not the one having to figure all this out, but
Right.
it seems like when you ask me, like, how would I solve it? I guess generally I would look for ways to somehow achieve like an equal risk on both sides. It feels to me often that it's imbalanced, but I could be off there. And I'm not a PvE care bear or whatever you want to call that person. I want PvP in games. I think that PvP is good for the health of any MMO. So
Yeah, 100%.
while we're picking for things to fight about, what about pay to win, pay to advance, pay to skip, pay to look good?
I mean, I think that the simple solution is like to really understand that life is pay to win, right? The best colleges cost more money than the worst colleges.
Yep.
Like, it is what it is. Do I think it's a system that should exist in games? No. But at the end of the day, like, it's a capitalist economy, and that's just what it is, right? So there are ways that in every single system that you can capitalize without spending money at all, right? But I think the challenge is the amount of work that it takes to do it without that advantage is overwhelming for a majority of player bases out there, right? So it creates a disparity where then, players feel like, well, if they're not, cranking 10K, 20K, 30K, 50K on a game, then they're just not going to win. But, on that same token, there are plenty of players I know personally that have spent loads of money and they're still trash. Um, but but I like, I think what it boils down to is, as gamers, just really taking responsibility for our actions and focusing on what we can do in the moment, regardless of what system is implementing. And I think that devs are aware that pay to win systems are dog shit. Are they going to make a lot of money from them? Absolutely. But I think there's other ways that they can incorporate systems like not having all the stat boosts and all that stuff. Because players that they should know by now that players that want to spend money will spend money regardless of the system, and it doesn't need to affect overall gameplay mechanics.
I think that's a really balanced take. I can appreciate that perspective. The more I have thought about it over the years, the more I think that, like, I think you hinted at this at the beginning of your answer, but like every game becomes pay to win. It's just kind of, who are you paying? Even the games where the publishers don't embrace it, like, the player base builds it.
Yep. And it's just something, unfortunately, that we can't avoid. And who knows what the future is going to be, especially as probably these game companies are probably going to move into crypto and all that craziness. So, we can, as gamers, just kind of sit back and hope for the best and, see what happens, especially with the onset of AI and everything that's coming in.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on subscriptions? It just seems to me like there's such a resentment building against games that offer subscriptions like WoW and Final Fantasy. Like the newer games, a lot of them have shifted away from that. They're going into their optionals or just all in cosmetics. I mean, do you think that a game can even use a model like that anymore?
I mean, I don't know. Like on what, like I'm kind of on both sides of the fence. Like on one side, I feel like it's hypocritical, right? Because like you'll have people complain about subscriptions to, for 9.99 to a game, but then they're paying $50 a month for an OnlyFans, right? Um, and then on the other side, like I get it because like you don't want to just keep paying to play and enjoy yourself, right? Because you're playing for enjoyment itself, and enjoyment. A lot of players feel like it shouldn't come in the form of a bill.
Yeah, fair. Here's one. You could search YouTube on this and get about 10,000 videos just published in the past 2 weeks, I think. Are MMOs dying?
Quite the contrary. I think that the genre itself, as time progresses, I don't think MMO itself will be a category anymore. I think that it will just be the way that games are played. I think that every game and every system will be moving into a create a character, play, in a system with other players, thousands of players all around the world. Just because the way that like social media moving and the way that technology is moving, I think the infrastructure for that will just become standard.
Fascinating. Um, I haven't thought of it that way. Somebody had asked me something along these lines a while back, and the one thing I did think, which I kind of along those lines, is just like I don't even think that MMO is really a genre. I think it's just kind of like a tag or like an attribute of a game, and like so what you're saying is like over time you expect more games to just gain that attribute.
I think every game
Yeah,
will just be a community focused aspect because like if you look at it like how social media has changed, like it used to be social media, it's not social media anymore. It's all interest based, interest focused. So it's really just having systems available that give the player what they want based on what they consume, right? And the only way that you can consistently do that, especially in the game, is to create a space where you have all those features and options available and you have multiplayer hubs if players so choose. And again, as technology continues to improve, I don't think it makes sense to create a game, any other style of game other than that, especially if we're talking about large scale.
yeah, we'll see. I don't disagree. I mean, but I'm a little biased. MMOs is all I play, so um, I hope you're right. That would give me a lot more options. Do you
Yeah.
think like there's any kind of um, bias in our mind or like things or qualities that we expect of an MMO that like, or maybe the game companies themselves like keep doing in MMOs that has to change? I mean, is there anything that stands out to you like companies got to stop doing this thing?
I think honestly, it's on us as players
Yeah,
because I think you know now that we have so many options, we treat gaming and games as like it's Tinder. I, we're just swiping right and swiping left on games over and over, just looking for the perfect concoction of all the things that we're looking for. And now that we live in a place where everything is instant and gratification is instant, it really creates a system to where no one game will ever really be enough. Am I saying that there won't be like knockouts like Wukong or games that have crushed the market? Absolutely not. I'm not saying that because I think that game will eventually come. That is the game of games. Real question is like what development team has the balls enough and the budget to do it?
you think CIG might?
Hard to say because as well as I do in game development, it's there's a lot of red tape.
Yeah. What hot button issues have we missed here?
I think we got the main ones, I think, that are
Yeah.
that are really plaguing the gaming community overall.
Yeah. What about cheating?
I feel like it's something you can't really get around,
Yeah.
unless people are just police are going to start arresting cheaters, and even then, like, people start throwing on Guy Fawkes masks and figuring it out, right? So it's not something that I think we can get by, but it's something that I think that more measures need to be taken to circumvent.
I keep saying like we need a return of the GMs. Like if you go back to the old MMOs, like the ones you started, and I feel like GMs walk the earth regularly, but I don't see them anymore. Do you think that could help?
It could, but the thing with like cheaters, hackers, right? Like if you set a bar of security, well, then they're just going to test it until they break it again, and then we have a whole new problem.
Yeah, I hear that. All right, well, awesome. This is good, fast chat. Demone, I just want to thank you again for coming on and talking about these flashpoints and MMO debates. Yeah, thanks so much for coming on and chatting with us. Please tell the folks here on my channel where they can find more of your great stuff.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate the love. It's a cool opportunity to get in here and actually be able to voice the concerns. I feel like, and I'm hoping that I'm speaking for a lot of gamers out there, because, like, on the development side, like, we care about the products, and like we've all been like let down so many times. And I think, like, on the development side, you guys have a tremendous opportunity to really show up, and really, that one development team that shows up will make all of the money. Period. But you guys can find me on all my socials. First name is Demone, last name is Kim. You guys can find me everywhere: Instagram, TikTok, you know, YouTube, of course. And that's it.
Awesome. Spectacular. Thanks again, man. Really good to have you. I love the perspectives you brought to this conversation. The back and forth on the topics like this, I think, shows people like, you can have multiple perspectives and it's all right. I think sometimes on like forums and Reddit and places like that, like the polarization can like just eat and like get people feeling all like high strung about this kind of stuff. But like really, like different players can have different opinions. Like I have I don't know how you like your videos and stuff. I have like this to-do list of like, hey, these are things I'd love to talk about on my channel, and like the whole like group play, PvE, PvP, like all this stuff has been on my mind for a while. I've wanted to do stuff, but I just never felt like I could do it justice by myself. And so like I wanted to do this series. I figured like a conversational approach would be better than like somebody standing in front of the camera on a monologue being like, so this has been awesome. Really appreciate having this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a great way to connect the community to larger creators as well, because I think awareness is key. Like I know like dev teams have QA testers and all that stuff, and they go through multiple layers. But being able to connect directly to the players, even outside of just beta tests or alpha tests, I think is a huge advantage for up and coming dev teams that really want to knock it out of the park with whatever game they're developing.
Thanks again, man, for coming on. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and watching. It's great to have you all here, and we hope to continue the conversation with everybody in the comments below. Until then, we're out.